Greetings, everybody. How you doing, Mr. Future Shock? Are you fine?
Greetings, yeah. Good evening, and
Wow, I'm almost out of greetings after that third attempt, but yeah, okay,
yeah, we
it's
couldn't
all
do a
right.
fourth one. We run out of greetings. Sorry. Yeah,
I don't even check the bit shoot to see if it's going now, but anyway, because what it is, it's like kind of annoying. You have to sort of every time you think you'd do it once and you'd set it as a destination because it works like that with YouTube and X, but with BitChute you have to every time you go live you have to set it up again and again. So anyway,
yeah. I didn't even know about that.
Nice sunny day. What's going on with you?
Yeah, man. I've just been as you know, I went up to see our mutual friend yesterday. I was telling you about, and yeah, I mean, the rest of the week has just been me doing my usual music stuff, AI stuff, blah blah. It's always the same answer, but for the next few weeks, that's what I'm going to be sort of really plugged into before my birthday in June. So yeah, but yeah, just been kind of progressing things on those fronts. How about you?
Birthday in June, 8. So I think I'm just checking the bit shoot. We seem to be live. That's pretty cool. It's actually worked. So birthday in June. Does that make you a Gemini?
Yeah, 1st of June.
You're Gemini. Oh gosh, wow, yeah. 1st of June. 1st of June. In that, hang on. It's not what's Taurus then? Oh yeah, Taurus is April to 21st, and then you're sort of okay. So you're Gemini, yeah, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really know what any of that means. I've never taken such a huge sort of like. I've never really looked into sort of horoscope type stuff and what it all means. And I mean, I can understand that potentially like planets and whatnot could affect you. They are quite big in some ways. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't know.
Well, if you think about it, they're electromagnetic nexuses, aren't they? They're actually incredibly powerful things, just like the sun is an electromagnetic quantum portal. The planets, they're conscious. They're actually, that's why they called, the ancients said they were gods, and in fact, they were kind of right in a way. They're massive electromagnetic nexus points, and they're fully conscious, and they influence life on Earth in an incredible, massive way. Of course, it's one of those things that we're ignorant of now. But if you think about it, for thousands of years, people knew this. They actually didn't even doubt it. It was like part of their daily science. It was part of their worldview that these bodies that sail around the sky, that they affect their lives. And if you look deeper into it in terms of electromagnetic energy, and that's what we're made of. Like we're little creatures and we're conscious. We have this amazing consciousness. That's just our little bit spark of electromagnetic energy in our brains. But you think of a planet, how much EM energy in the magnetic field and all that.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely conscious, man. You know what I mean?
And it's not out of the question that something like the size of Jupiter or Saturn could have some effect on that level with beings that are on a planet like Earth, the distance we are away from them. The fact that everything's moving as well at the same time, I don't know. There's some sense to it for sure. I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, like I say, whether the horoscopic kind of like interpretation of it is sort of correct is another story, I suppose. But yeah, given the planet's size and stuff, like I think people in the old times as well, like way back when you were talking about who understood it better. They saw it better as well, didn't they? And like these days, modern civilizations, we don't see up there. Especially if you're in cities and towns and stuff, you don't, way back when, they didn't have the light pollution issues that we have. So they had more of a connection, didn't they, with everything that was going on up there. So yeah, it's a shame we've kind of lost that. And then people will just see them as like being too far away because you can't see them in the sky or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
So yeah, I mean, if that's a little bit hard for people to digest, that the planets are conscious, maybe. But if you just think about it in terms of the time of the year you're born, and like the climatic situation, the amount of light, the length of the day. So if you're born, during the middle of the winter and you get like 4 hours daylight, whereas if you're born during the height of summer, like you are, and you get like 14 hours of day. And like it's going to have a massive effect on your developing brain and your developing consciousness. Yeah. It's obvious that I don't even think you can debate that. Do you know what I mean? Because like you've got that thing, that seasonally affected disorder when people get depressed in the winter. And then you have that thing with schizophrenics called sundowning. Have you seen that really crazy movie by Night Shyamalan? What is it? The Visit. It's such a creepy, evil, amazing, disturbing horror movie.
I don't think I've seen it. I have seen a few of his movies, but I don't think I've seen that one.
There's like a really good jump scare in it. You know, I mean, I do like a really well done jump scare, but a nasty one. I mean, like I don't even think I've quite recovered. It's like that from that Japanese movie.
Requiem for a Dream.
No, what's that Japanese movie about the one where you watch the videotape and you die?
Oh, that's I was thinking
Ring. There's a good the scare in that. You know, have you seen that movie?
I have seen it a long time ago. Yeah,
it's like such a good one. If you, oh yeah, nice one. You actually got me there. That's effing good. But this movie's got a really good scare in it. The Visit, but it's such a creepy movie, man. It's kind of a bit improbable because it's like, how could that happen? But it's about this woman, and she leaves her kids with her grandparents, who she hasn't seen for like 20 years. Right. And like the grandparents are all really nice and they're lovely grandparents, but they say, whatever you do, kids, don't, no matter what happens, once the sun goes down, whatever you hear out in the house, don't open your door, don't unlock your door, stay in until morning, and everything will be good. And they get curious and they want to know and they hear all these crazy noises during the night. And basically, the two grandparents are psychotic. And this thing called sundowning, it's like apparently with people who are schizophrenic or something, they notice a marked deterioration once the sun goes down. Do you know? Have you heard about such a thing?
No, it's funnily enough, no.
Symptoms get exacerbated. I mean, I've kind of experienced something similar actually. Like during this Kundalini experience I had, once the sun goes down, it's like that's like when the demons are abroad. You know what I mean? If you get sort of, because for some reason, whatever reason, I mean, we might talk about sort of discarnate voices and things like that today in today's show, because I've got a lot of material because I write a lot about that stuff. But this movie is so whack, and like, yeah, the sundowning thing. So I mean, just think about the effect that the sun has on our consciousness, and on a day-to-day basis, and on the basis of that,
safety as well, isn't it? There's like a safety element to it as well. I think. I mean, it's inherent in a lot of kids, isn't it? Like, it's very common that like kids are scared of the dark and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like the sunlight, the light of day brings a certain security, doesn't it?
Well, it's like a disinfectant for I mean, I don't know how sort of spiritual you want to go, but I mean, I fully believe in the presence of demons. There's not even a doubt in my mind because I've like seen them. So those things, they can't exist in the sunlight for some reason. It's like whatever in the Bible, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome the light. So whatever the light, as you know, I believe the EM is the stuff of God. The electromagnetic spectrum is light, is like God. It even says that in the Bible, in the New Testament. So it's like the light is like a disinfectant. So it sort of sends the demons scattering,
I mean, for me, in terms of the demons thing, I mean, I have become more open. Like, I'm not so far sort of believing in it as you probably are, and I have seen things as well. But
yeah,
and those things, well, yeah, kind of what I was basically trying to say, that I've become more open to it as I've got older, as I have seen subsequent things that I didn't see when I was younger. And for example, and like when they're things, when I look them up and they're consistent with things that other people have seen, so there's kind of like a consistency in a similar kind of like demon or vision or whatever you want to term it. So that's interesting. But personally, I haven't seen enough, thankfully, personally, I haven't seen enough to really kind of like be solid on whether it is a proper supernatural phenomenon, or whether it's just like my brain when I'm in situations that I've severely lacked sleep and drunk quite a lot of alcohol, which is 100% of the times that they've happened. So it's still a little bit of a question mark over it for me.
So Yeah, I mean, I've written quite a lot about it because it had this sort of experience. I mean, I was being recruited by the Illuminati and this kind of stuff abroad, and they sort of enroll you on a program, and the apotheosis of that program is what they call like Luciferian enlightenment. You know, it's like illumination, and then you get in contact with the sort of demonic hierarchy, and these are the beings who control these people. Like these people are all controlled, you know, by these like hidden these voices, you know, these, or not even voices, but just sometimes impulsions. Or sometimes if you do something they don't want you to do, they sort of affect your body with, you know, with like pain or something. And this is something that has been written about quite extensively. I mean, one of the greatest books from a first person point of view of someone who experienced this is, again, it's in my book Demons of Eleusis. It's a book called Operators and Things, and it's a lady called Barbara O'Brien who developed schizophrenia in the 50s, and it was the result of a long and stressful period at work. And she was kind of like bullied in the workplace, and she sort of saw so much unscrupulous behavior at work that she kind of lost her mind, you know. Oh, well, I mean, losing your mind doesn't mean anything. I mean, that's just a colloquial expression. It doesn't explain what really happens to these people. But they sort of break through to like the other side of reality, and like it's like cracking the ice, or the sugar layer of a creme brulee, and they find out what's underneath. And that stuff is there. It's always underneath, but it's like you have to be in an extreme situation. I mean, some people see this thing when they do drugs, right? They break through that way. There's different ways of connecting. Or what, ecstatic states, shamanic consciousness, you know, stuff like that. There's always been techniques to communicate with these beings, and that's of course what the Illuminati and the Freemasons and the witches, that's what they go out of their way to do. They go out of their way to contact these beings.
So, I mean, for me, whenever I've had experiences similar to sort of what you're describing in terms of what we were saying before about seeing demons or seeing things potentially like that, what I have is kind of like, it's always been, like I say, the same sort of situation. But I've always had as well, at the same time as this, and it never really happens at any other time as well, I would always have seriously lucid dreams, like vividly lucid dreams. Not just, it's like a lucid dream sort of 2.0. And that would only happen in those situations as well. So my point being, kind of going back to what you were saying about how it's almost, it's like you could be tapping into something. It's like there's various ways to do it. There's various ways to get to the state to do it. And yeah, you potentially just sort of like tapping on the top and uncracking the top and seeing these things seep through that you wouldn't usually seep through. And it's interesting because obviously working in mental health for 2 decades, it is quite interesting to kind of like see it firsthand when you think to yourself, oh, so this is kind of like what they must be feeling, like certain people with certain symptoms must be feeling, you know, all of the time when they're ill. So it's quite interesting to get like a truer perspective on it, let's say. But yeah, we were talking about voices before actually, and someone had mentioned, like along the same lines, kind of what you were saying. Someone had mentioned kind of like how are they always they're always so negative. You never get like nice voices. You never get voices telling you that, you know, you look great in those trousers. You know, you lost some weight recently. You know, they never kind of like, they're always kind of like telling you to do mean things to yourself, telling you you're a loser, telling you you're a failure, blah, 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 those kind of things. So I hear anyway from people. So why do you think that is? Why don't we have like positive voices? Is it just because that type of thing is tied into what you're saying about that this kind of kind of approach, which obviously would be negative, it wouldn't be positive?
Well, that's it, because psychiatry wants us to believe that these are aspects of our consciousness, isn't it? That's the official view, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that makes no sense. Why would your consciousness? Why would you fight against yourself? Why? I mean, and also these voices are usually trying to drive people to suicide and things like that, or do destructive acts. But the human nature is to preserve, you know, every cell in your body is trying to make you survive that bit longer, and that's the whole point, you know, of our life, is to survive on like a anthropological cellular level, to survive in a hostile environment. It makes no sense that your own consciousness would rebel against yourself and try and kill you. That is pure nonsense. It actually makes more sense that they're antithetical demonic beings that hate human life and try and destroy it at any opportunity. That actually makes more sense, you know, in fact.
So, you know, kind of like sort of if they were in sort of temporary control of you, like they kind of like broken through and they're kind of like controlling you, they're sort of making you do these things, or trying to make you do these things, either to yourself or to other people, or just generally in the world, just because they're almost like they're messing around, like in an evil way. They just sort of got control of the person and they're making them kind of like do stupid stuff.
Well, this book that I'm talking about, this Operators and Things, is actually recommended to me by someone on my old YouTube channel. And it's like the most amazing thing I've actually ever read. And what it is, like she has this sort of psychotic break because of the work stress, and she sees all these sort of psychopaths at work bullying each other and bullying her and stuff. And then one day she just wakes up out of sleep, obviously, and she sees 3 ghostly forms at her bedside. And they tell her that she's now involved in a secret experiment. And the experiment is to reveal the secret world of the operators to one of the things. And what it is, the operator is the word that these demonic spirit discarnate beings use for themselves. And for human beings, they call them things. And what they do is these operators, these spirit beings, they operate on human beings and make them do things.
Yeah.
So it's what they say is like some of the things that so that from this point on, she's in constant contact with these operators. And this isn't fiction. This is all completely true. This is a story. This is her own first-hand account, Barbara O'Brien. And the operators tell her that they're responsible for human evolution. They say that if it wasn't for the operators, you things would be wandering in and out of caves. And this is interesting because there's a Masonic book called The Golden Remains. It's a compilation of early Masonic writers, and it was written in 1847 compiled by a guy called George Oliver. Right, so this is the Freemasons, right? These people rule the world, right? And I'm going to read this thing out because this is from my book. So this is what the Masons believe. Well, this is a compilation of Masonic thought, right? So George, he says, in the history of man, there's nothing more remarkable than that Masonry and civilization, like twin sisters, have gone hand in hand. The orders of architecture mark their growth and progress. Dark and dreary and comfortless were those days when Masonry had not laid her line or extended her compass. The race of mankind, in full possession of wild and savage liberty, mutually afraid of offending each other, hid themselves in thickets of the wood or in dens and caverns of the earth. In those poor recesses and gloomy solitudes, Masonry found them, and the grand geometrician of the universe, pitying their forlorn situation, instructed them to build houses for their case, defense, and comfort. I think that's ease. I think I need to spell. I need to do a bit of editing. It's easy to conceive that in the early state of society, genius had expanded but little. The first efforts were small and the structure simple and rude, no more than a number of trees leaning together at the top in the form of a cone interwoven with twigs and plastered with mud to exude the air and complete the work. So that's saying a similar thing to what these demonic beings tell Barbara O'Brien, that if it wasn't for the demons, the operators, so-called, then human beings would still be in caves. And then this Masonic writer is saying human beings were in caves, were just animals, and then Masonry found them, the grand geometrician. So it's like Masonry is a demonic
grand geometrician. That's a hell of a job title, isn't it? Yeah, I'm just actually looking on Amazon at operators and things. The inner life of a schizophrenic, Barbara O'Brien, 4.3 stars out of 5. So that's a pretty decent rating. 25 fucking quid as well. So yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, but I mean, anyway.
Get a PDF quite.
To be fair,
I think it's out of public domain. I think you can actually download a PDF quite easily without paying anything. I think that's how I got. That's where I got it from. So yeah.
But yeah, no, interesting. Like 6 months, she travels around the country on Greyhound buses, captive of the operators who push and pull, torment, confuse, and exhaust her. So yeah, interesting. But I mean, like, yeah, look, I mean, there must have been secret societies and higher hierarchies way back when, and it seems unlikely that they would just, you know, disappear over time, especially if they were, you know, powerful elites. They don't just disappear, like actually disappear. Do you know what I mean? So they're definitely still around, just well hidden. Well, not that well hidden sometimes, really.
No, yeah, there's a lot of strange things. So, like, at one point, Barbara O'Brien, she's running out of money, and she decides that she's going to try and find a job. And she started out. Obviously, she got off the bus because she spends a lot of time traveling on Greyhound buses. And she said something urged me to walk in the opposite direction from the bus line towards a large building a few blocks away. Something urged me so violently to enter the building that it would have been impossible almost not to have gone in. I went to the building's personnel department, found the employment manager, not at all surprised to see me, and she had phoned an agency that morning for a receptionist, and she hired me. Right. So it's that thing I told you, remember, like I said, they get voices, these people, the Illuminati, they hear voices, they hear not just voices, but they get compulsions, they get pulsions, they get hints, they get like prompts, they get something pushing them to do something. And
the only time
this woman, she walked into this building, she was almost forced to go there. She didn't hear a voice, and she went to and she got a job immediately because they were not surprised to see her. They thought she was from the agency. It's quite weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've had something like that is just being like a voice that said my name. It's just that's the only time I've ever had anything kind of like you might say it's like an auditory hallucination or however you want to term it. Just say my name, female voice say my name. I've had that like twice, and then one random time was when I was like, what was I getting into at the time? I can't remember. I was getting into God, I was reading a lot about stuff like potentially humans each having like a guardian angel and stuff like this. This was years ago. I just happened to be reading about that kind of thing for whatever reason. And I was kind of like saying, okay, you know, what is my sort of like, if I have one, what's the name of this guardian angel? And then when I was trying to go to sleep that same night, I just heard this voice go, and it's just a stupid name as well. I just heard this voice go, Linda. But Linda, you're telling me my guardian angel, like, no offense, Linda, if you're watching, but I just expected like a different name. Do you know what I mean? I didn't expect Linda. That's fine. But
I mean, yeah, sounds like a kind of name of sort of typing secretary or something.
It's like a dinner lady or
something. Nothing wrong with Linda. Nothing wrong with Linda. Linda's
nothing wrong with it.
Name anymore, is it? It's a very 1950s, and people born in the 1950s were probably called Linda. I don't know anyone called Linda, and I've met hundreds of people, thousands of people. No, Linda, that's a dead name, isn't it, man?
Kind of, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense, Jackie, doesn't it? Really,
Deirdre, all these names, man. Jackie, Deirdre, Linda. No one gets called them anymore. Yeah, so, hang on. So you asked this thing. You made a request. Ask what
I kind of like asked the universe kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It was probably around the time. I probably knew you at the time. Probably sort of like early times when we were just sort of like getting into things like trying to hunt down 10p's and travel cards and stuff. So it was around that time, and I'd just been reading for whatever reason about like stuff like that. So I sort of asked the universe, and then the very same night I get the Linda.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, I'll go with that, Linda.
So it's Linda. It's cool. I like Linda. It's fine. I'm still around. So
Have you seen any? Do you ever get? Thing is, in your dreams, right? When you dream something, it's like a dream is like two things. It's like both of sort of diagnostic of your mental health. I consider it that, right? Because I've got a friend, and he's always been chased in his dreams, but he's also a Freemason, and he's one of my best friends, but he's like a 2nd-degree Freemason, and he doesn't go far into it and whatever, but he's always been chased. Like he's in a Jason Bourne movie or James Bond movie every night when he dreams. He's just been chased, and it's like that's not healthy. Do you know what I mean? Because I think like last week, if we talked about how death and sleep are kind of twins, you know, Thanatos and Hypnos, right? The Greek twins. So it's like sleeping is a kind of hint of what's in your kind of astral domain. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. That's what I think.
Interesting. So what do you mean by that? So when you say what's in your astral domain, I mean, like, what do you mean?
No, it's like, well, your astral domain is like your soul. You know, your soul. You know, when you're dreaming, your soul is unleashed. Right? You're in an eternity, aren't you? Because you don't have time. There's no sequential time in a dream. Everything happens at once. You know, you never sort of wait in a dream. You never wait around. It's like in reality, you're of course an effect, but it takes place in time. But when you do things in a dream, like you make a decision or you do, the results are instantaneous, and you find yourself in a different situation based on what you thought about in the dream. So what I mean by like astral domain is like the makeup of your soul, like where you are at, you know, energetically speaking. So people who I think who are haunted and people who have bad dreams, nightmares, that often goes hand in hand with having psychological problems, you know. And that goes hand in hand with, I would consider it like your soul health. You know, your how healthy your soul is. You know, how spiritually strong and defended you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talked before about entering into the dreamscape as being akin to sort of going into 4D, or at least having some taste of 4D somehow. So like, how does that connect exactly to like your own psyche? Like how does like the 4D realm connect to your own psyche, if that's what we're talking about, if I've understood it correctly?
Well, it's you stripped down, isn't it? It's what's fundamentally inside you. That's what you are. I mean, your physical form, of course, is just a meat suit. It's just you know, it's just temporary. But who you really are is your electromagnetic profile. You know, your soul. I'd call that your soul. So how, you know, how that, and also it goes hand in hand with your personality. So how hopeful you are, how positive you are, you know, how confident you are, you know, how much, should we say, like guilt, if you have guilt, if you've done bad things, or if you're free of guilt, if you're living in a light, you're carefree. These things are all part of like our minds, but we take that with us. You know, we can't really escape from that, and we don't. And when we dream, we take it with us, don't we? We take our baggage with us into our dream, and our dream is where we try and, you know, I mean, science will say that dreams are where we try and make sense of the riddles of everyday life. And that's true. We try and that's why when we sleep, we get repaired. We get like mentally and physically repaired, because the dream state, sleeping, is supposed to be like a way to return to the source and, you know, get replenished and get refreshed, so we can come back here and get worn down and fucked over for another day. You know what I mean?
You just reminded me, if you remember that brilliant Red Dwarf episode, Justice, like the guilt, they have to decide. I'm just trying to remember the exact thing, isn't it? Like they have to decide whether if they feel guilty for something or not, isn't it? And then
it's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. I love that episode. Yeah,
Rimmer's the one, because he like has his own kind of like inflated sense of self-importance. Like he doesn't feel guilty, does he? And he passes or something. I can't remember the exact.
Oh yeah, that's not the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor's a similar one, isn't it? That there's like an android that goes throughout the universe, like punishing people for their, and then
Yes, I'm getting it mixed up here.
You judge yourself, you know, on whether you made the most out of life.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Yeah,
it's a sort of similar thing. The Inquisitor and Justice. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, no, there's some truth in that. I mean, the thing is, it is just science fiction. But yeah, I mean, often, I've been watching a lot of near-death experiences on YouTube and all this. Yeah. And you often find that, you know, it's like your high, you know, they talk about higher self and that kind of thing. I mean, I know it sounds new age and cheesy, but I kind of, it is like that. I do believe you do have a higher self. You know, there is part of you that is like part of God that is animating you.
And the thing is, there has to be. I mean, like, if you can't, it's not like there's a wall or something. It's like, I mean, I know it sounds very kind of cheesy to be like when people say like everything's connected and whatnot and all this kind of stuff, but like to a degree, like you are like you're not just in the universe, you are kind of like part of it. You are part of this one large structure, and then that structure connects to whatever is like beyond that. So you are still a part of everything. So that's why, yeah, you get like when you just said you strip down when you dream, it's kind of like just going right back to the kind of like the light-based level that perhaps is what you're normally used to when you're not a human. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, this idea, you're not just because you're a human on Earth, it's not like you're separate to the universe or to what God could be and what, like, you know, what the great sort of like fourth dimension would be. You're everything is connected to everything else at some point.
Well, yeah, that's it, because that the nature of light is that light is it's eternal and it's interconnected. So that aspect of yourself that is electromagnetic, that is like that's your sort of connection to what we call God. And it's like it's all knowing, and if you remember, we watched that video that Carl Sagan last week with this traveling at the speed of light.
Yeah,
and the speed of light, like the visible universe, just becomes like sort of completely compacted, and then the light is everywhere at once, at every point in the universe simultaneously, and it reaches eternity. So in that sense, it's like everything is connected.
Yeah,
it's like
and that's
a photonic wave, you know.
I think that's why you can sort of like look at, you know, when people say things like God knows your thoughts and like, or like God knows all thoughts and all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, possibly because it's not just in your head, whatever it is, or it's not even maybe in your head in the first place. I don't know exactly, but it's wherever it is, wherever you want to, geometrically place that, it's still within the universe, which is, you know, a universe of God, presumably, or whether the universe is or is of God. Surely God would know that. So just because you view it as thoughts that are inside your head doesn't mean that they can't be known necessarily, which actually kind of brings me somewhat towards one thing I was going to talk to you about remote viewing. And like, I don't know if you know too much about it as such. Have you looked into remote viewing at all? Seen much about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard bits and pieces. I mean, I've kind of like, I mean, there's a load of cranks doing that though. Who was that guy? The remote viewer guy.
Yes,
there was a big crank who did that. What was his name? He used to appear on Jeff Rent's, and he was always saying that they were gonna put radioactive cesium in Israel or something. God, what was his name? Rifat. Have you heard of Tim Rifat? He was one of the big remote. He's absolutely bonkers. Tim Rifat. Have you heard of that guy?
Not
Tim
heard.
Rifat. Well, he was one of the big sort of remote viewing guys, and he reckons he was like harnessing an army of remote assassins that were gonna, remote viewing witches, that he was hiring an army or something, trying to recruit an army to assassinate all the leaders in the world using psychic power. But he was a complete crank. But yeah, I know what remote viewing is.
None of the CIA.
I've heard things that there's a lot of crankery though. One of the things they used to say was sort of CIA had done remote viewing after the year 2012, and they say that there was no more Earth. And I don't know. I mean, what do you know about it? I got a lot of crankery out of it, and I think there was a lot of crankery back in the day, remote viewing. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know that much about it. I just thought it was something that like you might know a bit more about than me, to be honest. But yeah, I always felt a bit skeptical about it. It was always kind of a bit wishy-washy for me. I know about the CIA thing. I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't really know if that's supposed to be valid or is it valid.
Apparently, Tim Riffat's was taken to a mental hospital in 2016. Terrible. I'm going to read this from Rent's News. Terrible Tim Riffat, because he was always on. You heard of Jeff Rent's?
Say again, sorry.
You heard of Jeff Rent's radio program, internet radio? Jeff Rent?
Yeah, it does ring a bell. Yeah.
Back in the day, I mean, not so much now, but hang on. Terrible Tim Riffat taken by Brit authorities. Actually, if you look on YouTube, there is a video. There used to be a video of Tim Riffat actually on Channel 4. I think on After Dark. Let me see if I find the clip.
So I'm just looking for him here on Google, and he's just saying that he is like taking into account what you've just told me. Google is saying Tim Riffat is the United Kingdom's, spelt wrong, leading expert on remote viewing and world viewing.
But he's a complete crank, though. Unfortunately, that's the
problem. World expert, according to Google.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find this old clip of Tim Riffat on TV, but I don't think I can find it because it's probably long gone. But it was actually the only time something like this made the mainstream. But I can't see it, mate. Hang on, let's see. I think it's on Channel 4. Tim Riffat documentary. Otherwise, I'll just read out that thing about. What do you know about remote viewing, though? Well, what have you heard about it, though?
Well, all I heard about it was obviously that they can just essentially imagine themselves somewhere else and just sort of like whether that's used for seeing what's inside buildings, rooms, or trying to find things, etc. Yeah, so it's just a sort of like psychic ability, quote unquote, to just sort of see on another part of the world that you know obviously can't see. So yeah, that's pretty much as I knew about it, to be honest with you. But someone just brought it up at work the other day.
Oh yeah,
and just reminded me about it. So
what did they say about it?
They were kind of just sort of. So we got into this like long conversation about various things around this, and it just sort of popped up. And to be honest, the chat was just more like kind of, what do you know about it, kind of thing. And I was just like, well, yeah, I basically told her what I told you just now, basically. And yeah, I just thought, oh yeah, I remember hearing about it ages ago and just sort of not seeing about it for ages since. So yeah, I didn't know if it was even something these days that people were trying to promulgate and push at all, or what.
No, I think like a lot of things, that's kind of that pot's gone off the boil, really. But largely because there's so much. I mean, the thing is, there's a thing now. Well, hang on, this is from 11 years ago, but Darren Brown is on about how to be a psychic spy. But you see, once Darren Brown gets hold of anything, it's become like ridiculous. You know, it's like a sort of. Usually, Darren Brown is the kind of guy who sort of debunks things, doesn't he, by showing that it's all fake.
So you're talking. Sorry, did you say Darren Brown or Darren Brown?
Yeah, Darren Brown, whatever his name is. Yeah, Darren Brown. Yeah.
So the guy, like the performer,
the magic guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, that old Tim Riffat clip's no longer around, man. But anyway, let me read that thing about terrible Tim Riffat by British authorities. So Jeff Rent's note from Justice on his website. I've received from Tim's associate, who was told by Tim's family that he was taken from his residence just before his scheduled appearance. So he was going to be on the Jeff Rent's show, 2016. I was informed that he was taken to a mental hospital and he's being held as someone who is mentally ill. I have no idea what kind of treatment is being forced on him or what his near-term status is. And yeah, so and such and such and such. But yeah, so... But yeah, like you say, he was the foremost expert on remote viewing, according to himself, I think. But he started selling sort of. He had a website where he would sort of sell like gimmicky, like psychic shields and things like that, little pieces of crap made of metal that would protect you from psychic attacks and things like this. So he was kind of like a bit of a nutcase, bit of a scammer as well. But it was certainly entertaining. wonder if he still has his website. He's got loads of books out, to be fair. He's got a few books. Yeah, I mean, he was, Wikipedia, Google Books, the United Kingdom's leading expert on remote viewing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe. I mean, that doesn't really say much, I suppose, does it? It does. That doesn't say anything necessarily for the validity of remote viewing. The fact that he's an expert on it.
So, I mean, listen, if you want to know what I think about remote viewing, so you're using. Well, I've known people who can project their consciousness into other people's minds, but whether you can project your consciousness into other places and view something, I think it's probably, the whole thing is too unstable. I mean, what I always try and do is, when you're sleeping, when you wake, when you're sort of, you've woken up and your kind of eyes are closed, and you really want to know what time it is. Because you're like, oh, do I have to wake up now? And like, you try everything. You try and imagine your watch, or you imagine your phone, or you try in any way you can to see what time it is, and it just never quite works. I don't think you can. I don't think it's possible. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at Tim Riefart. I mean, he wouldn't have got locked up in 2016. I mean. And the stuff he was going on about on the Jeff Rentz show, he did go a bit bonkers. And because what you're doing is you're projecting your consciousness, you're visualizing something, but you're looking at an astral reality. So that astral reality doesn't necessarily have to bear any resemblance to physical reality. So I just think there's too much interference from your own mind. If you think about it, do you know what I mean? If you're trying to think about, you want to view like the secret chamber of the Great Pyramid or something like that, right? But you've got all these ideas in your mind about what you might see, and it's going to cloud the result. It's like if you do, I used to guess horse races. I used to be able to predict sometimes I could predict the right horse, and I used to get this vision, and I used to get this I knew who was going to win the race, right? But then the more you do it, your mind starts to affect the result. It's like you start to get confused. You start to think, oh no, am I only thinking that because the horse has got an interesting name, or is it the odds, or is it this, that, and that? And then you just find that after a while you get like beginner's luck, but then your mind starts to cloud the result. Or if you start guessing playing cards, that's like something I could do. So playing cards, you just turn over the playing card and you guess what it is, right? You don't look at it obviously, but you can get an idea. You can see it in your mind. I guess that's remote viewing. That's so I have done remote viewing. Yeah. So I have done it. And initially it works. You can see things, with your mind that are in. You know what I mean?
It's interesting how, in a way, your mind sort of sabotages you, or is it sabotaging?
Exactly. Your mind kind of starts messing with the result, and you can't get clear. You don't get clarity after a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in some way, because beginner's luck, quote unquote, could just be as simple. It was the beginning was when there was the most simplified. The beginning was like the most simplified options that you had in a way. And once, like you say, once you start to get into it, your brain starts to interfere.
Yeah.
And the thoughts create more options in your mind when you're looking at the horse, the bet, whatever you're doing. And then you tend to overthink it. Whereas in the beginning, you don't have that chat. You don't have that chatter because you're beginning it for the first time.
Didn't you do something similar? Didn't you used to predict horse races?
No, I did football. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, football. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing. I can't remember what happened. I think I was doing all right for a bit, and then it just sort of petered out, and it was just like lost. I was like, oh, okay.
That's the same. Yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah, that's right. I remember you told me about that. I think I've written it in one of my books. I think. Yeah.
It could be. I mean, there's certain ways when. I mean, I can't speak for horse. I mean, in terms of horse racing betting, I've hardly ever done that. It's usually the Grand National, although I didn't do this year. And that's it. So I don't know anything about it. With football, it's more like there's certain bets. It's hard to explain, but there's certain bets where you get a kind of knowing, and with capital K.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
And you just know that you look at the odds, you look at the two teams playing, you look at what the selection is, you think, there's going to be good, there's going to be goals in that game, for both teams to score, it seems really appealing. There's just a feeling, and everything else seems to be more like, so you'll have like 1 or 2 bets like that, and then when you're trying to do like an accumulator or something, which is the stuff, when I do a football bet, I would do that, like just a few different selections all together, and you find the rest you're sort of like trying to find the solution rather than getting a feeling for it, and it's generally always the ones that you have the feeling for that come in, that win, as opposed to the ones where you're kind of overthought them a little bit more. It is a thing. There's definitely something in that, but harnessing that is almost impossible in a way.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, when I used to predict playing cards, I used to like clear my mind, and the first couple of times I literally got the right card, and honestly I could do it. But then as you keep doing it, you sort of see, you close your eyes and you think, oh, it's so the first card you got was like a black king or something, and then you try it again, and then you see a king, another king, and you think, oh no, well that can't be right, because I'm just thinking king because the previous card was a king, and then you're thinking, oh well, maybe I'm seeing a black card because the previous card was black as well, or something like that, but then annoyingly, you turn it around and it is a king or something, or it is a black card, and you discounted, your mind like sort of discounted it, because you're trying to rationalize, you're trying to sort of like use your sort of analytical faculty to sort of, because you're sort of in the dark, aren't you? When you're predicting something, you kind of try and clear your mind, but you don't know where something comes to you, but you don't know where it's coming from, whether it's like whether you thought, or whether it's like pure intuition, but you can't quite discern the difference. I mean, the annoying thing is, whenever I put money on, when I did it like loads, practicing predicting horses, and just amazingly I would get it right, like sort of what, maybe like 7 out of 10 times. But then when it came to actually, okay, I'm going to start putting money on it, and it just didn't work. It's like absolute disaster. So it's like almost as if
it enters into a different realm once money gets involved. You've entered the I can't think of the word now, but you put money into the sort of formula, and now it's kind of like messed it up. That's the thing. I mean, the way to do things like that maybe is more logically, like I guess maybe try and find like a simple logical system where you don't need to think, where you're just like, every time you're putting the bet on, you're just implementing the system, so there's no thinking involved, and then just go try that out. And if you can get something that's like 6, 7 out of 10, like you were saying, hopefully, just see how you get on. I had one recently where I was getting, I don't want to sound like I do football betting all the time, but like I was messing around recently with a system like what I've just described, a logical one. I was getting 4 out of 7. So like every day. So I was doing a small bet to try it out. So I was putting money on as well. So money was in the equation. But I was only doing a small bet every day on a certain system I was trying to do with goals scored. And it was getting 4 out of 7. And I didn't even start doing it because it was failing. I stupidly started getting into, even though it was working 4 out of 7, I started just doing different ones. It was so stupid. And then I started losing a bit of money doing the different ones, and I just sort of gave it all up. So maybe I should go back to the previous one. But I think it has to be, you have to take, if you're going to succeed at that stuff, there has to be a way of taking thought out of it so you don't trip yourself up.
I mean, also, I think as well, I mean, people say, I mean, in the law of like spiritual politics, that you're not supposed to use powers for your own benefit or something, like, so like the idea that trying to get rich using psychic powers, and already psychic powers are something quite sort of tenuous and beyond our understanding, beyond our world, really, in a sense. But I don't know, it's like you're not supposed to use these things for personal gain, so they say. I mean, that's part of the law of it. That's what you hear,
I mean, whoops, hang on, just go on a sec. I've just messed up something on my screen. Hang on one sec. There we go. I've got it back now. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, what did you say? Sorry then. So I just messed my screen up then. So what did you just say?
I don't know, man. I was just saying that how you're not supposed to use like these powers for personal gain or something. I mean, have you heard about that?
You know? Yeah, no, I get that. But I think, yeah, if you could just, so that's why if you can get something that's a bit more logical, that's maybe more sort of like, the powers that be, the more supernatural powers that be a bit more on your side, perhaps. But yeah, I get that. Isn't there I'm going to butcher this story completely, but isn't there an old story about, oh, mate, I don't want to even maybe I get this wrong, about like some Japanese samurai that used their powers the wrong way. Oh man, I can't remember enough of the story, so maybe just forget that. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense that if you did have like psychic powers, you're not supposed to use it sort of like for monetary gain, perhaps, let's say.
So okay,
like, what's the deal with Mystic Meg? Well, Mystic Meg's dead now. That's the deal. But what's the deal with like psychics who are allegedly using their powers for monetary gain? People are paying them for psychic readings, all this kind of stuff. That's at odds with the universe, then, surely.
I don't know. Mystic. Well, she was just an astrologist, wasn't she? Though I mean, suppose in theory, she was helping people, wasn't she?
Actually, she was an astrologist. Yeah, that's fair. And that just got me thinking about people who are more like the psychics who claim to have psychic powers, and then like people pay them and they get told this, that, and the other. So yeah.
Anyway, so we're kind of talking about basically the theme has been about what voices in people's heads and things like that. So William Burroughs, right?
Yeah.
Are you a particular fan of William Burroughs?
I haven't
Naked Lunch and Beat Poets and all that, right?
I've seen Naked Lunch, but I haven't seen. I think Naked Lunch is the only one I've seen, actually.
So he became a writer after, how he killed his wife?
No, it might.
He tried to reenact William Tell with like a firearm, and he was like drinking a lot, having a like party, and he tried to shoot a glass from her head in a game of William Tell at a drinks party. I mean, can you imagine that? So instead of shooting a glass, he actually killed his wife, shot her in the face. And that was when he became a writer, because he said the only way I could get through this guilt was just to write it out, just to become a writer, to sort of expunge the demon. And near the end of his life, he said this, William Burroughs, he said, "My accidental shooting of my wife in 1951 has been a heavy, painful burden to me for 41 years. It was a horrible thing, and it still hurts to realize that some people think it was somehow deliberate. I've been honest about the circumstances. We were both very drunk and reckless. She dared me to shoot a glass off her head, and for God knows what reason, I took the dare. All my life, I've regretted that day. It was not until 1959 that the malevolent entity was given a name. Burroughs and his friend Brian Gissin were conducting psychic experiments at the Beat Hotel in Paris when Gissin, in a semi-trance state, wrote on a piece of paper, "Ugly spirit killed Joan because," and that's all that was written there. Ugly spirit killed Joan because. And Burroughs explained how writing became his main weapon against possession by the evil spirit. He says this, William Burroughs, he says, "I live with the constant threat of possession and a constant need to escape from possession, from control. So the death of Joan brought me in contact with the invader, the ugly spirit, and maneuvered me into a lifelong struggle in which I have had no choice except to write my way out."
So did that spirit kind of come in when he was drunk, though? When he was drinking? Was he drinking spirits? Is this kind of what
they were drinking? Yeah, they were drinking.
So whether it was spirits, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this is why they're called spirits, isn't it? Maybe this is just like drugs, like something, some sort of intoxicant like this. This is what it enables you to kind of like tap into these things, or those.
So that's it, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, like it's almost like an ecstatic state, isn't it? It's like some of the like the tribes in Africa or whatnot. I mean, they get into these ecstatic states, don't they? Or they use transformative psychoactive chemicals, you know, to sort of perceive these beings, like ayahuasca or whatever, or just like a half a bottle of scotch, you know.
Yeah, bottle of scotch. Yeah, I mean, man, well, the only times that I've had, kind of going back to what we were saying before about the sort of like demonic apparitions and things, like I said, the only time I've had that kind of thing has been after sort of longer drink binges and stuff like this. So I think there's something, you're just almost perhaps also in a very, that's the sort of situation where you're quite susceptible. So yeah, you know, you're perhaps, you know, your defenses are down for these kind of things, for the potential for these kind of takeovers, for these, you know. So I think that plays a part for sure. I mean, but there's also what comes with it. Well, I remember one of the worst ones. I mean, I've not had many of these, so I'm not trying to make out that I've had loads of these, but I remember one of the worst that I had back when I was in my late 20s, and there was definite a kind of like malevolent feeling to things. Like it's hard to really kind of explain it beyond that. It's just reality, especially at night, felt malevolent. But even during the day as well, I would get, yeah, even during the day, but not quite the same as when it was at night. And of course, with that, you know, you get like insomnia and stuff like this, so it just kind of like snowballs because you've got like your sleep deprived as well. So yeah, but it's that malevolent. There's just something about that. Yeah, there's just a malevolent feeling. Kind of, it feels like it's just underneath everything when you're in that state. It's interesting. It's quite hard to explain.
So, have you seen that movie, Guy Ritchie movie, Revolver?
I don't think so.
Okay, you should watch it because it's a really good movie. Are you familiar with Guy Ritchie?
Yeah.
So you know, like he was married to Madonna, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, look, Lock, Stock, and Snatch. I've seen those two.
Yeah, and you know, like Madonna was into the Kabbalah and all that, right?
All right. Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. No, I've seen.
So this was like, I think this is like his first movie that he made after his divorce from Madonna.
Right.
And this movie is like really far out. It's like an amazing movie, Revolver. So there's a character called Jake. It's played by Jason Statham.
Yeah. Okay. You know? Yeah. I remember. I can remember the front. I can remember the like poster of it, but I've not actually seen it.
So what it is, it's basically there's this enemy in this movie called Sam Gold, right? Sam Gold is like the big boogeyman, the one. No one lives and displeases Sam Gold, and everyone's scared of Sam Gold. So all the gangsters are scared of Sam Gold, right? So this guy, he gets released from prison, and he meets these unusual two characters who take him under their wing, and it seems that they're trying to rip him off, and they're kind of like a symbolic representation of the Kabbalah. Like they're like, one of them's a black guy, one of them's a white guy. And it's like they're kind of like the pillars, Joachim and Boaz, like a Freemasonic sort of thing, you know, the pillars of the Temple of Solomon. So he's fighting against this character called Sam Gold, and they keep telling him, you know, Sam Gold, you know, no one can live, and you've gone to war with Sam Gold. So it turns out, I mean, the thing is, it's big spoilers coming because it's actually a good movie, but it's so amazing. Jake is sort of sent on a path of self-discovery by these two mysterious men, and they rob him and they make him do things. They sort of, but also at the same time they seem to have control. They seem to have his life in their hands. They sort of save him from like an assassination. Like he sees a note and it tells him to duck, and he ducks at the right time. So he sort of owes them. They have this mysterious power, but at the same time, they sort of like, they're taking all his money, and so what it is, they're trying to break his ego down. They're trying to like rob him and like abuse him so much that he kind of like breaks he like becomes free of attachment. Do you know what I mean? In like a Buddhist way. So what they do is they're trying to they tell him Sam Gold. They tell him, you've got to break free of Sam Gold. The only way to be free in this society, in this world, is to defeat Sam Gold. And they say Sam Gold is behind all the evil in the world. Sam Gold, you know, is a murderer. And so what they do is he's forced to abandon everything he holds dear, like his ego. So like finally, like his money is gone, his ego is gone. And then what he discovers, and also he sort of suffers from this claustrophobia. So he'll never get into a lift because he can't stand being in confined spaces. So what he discovers that Sam Gold is actually the voice in his head. And it's the voice in everyone's head. Sam Gold is inside all of us. And it's Sam Gold are a voice in our head. And it's true that makes everything evil happen. It makes us feel, you know, angry, slighted. It makes us want to hurt people. It makes us want to kill. It makes us envious, jealous. All of the evil in the world is Sam Gold, and it's that voice in your head. And it's such a cool film, man. So the mysterious enemy that everyone fears and no one's ever seen, you know, no one can see Sam Gold, you know, no one knows him. And it's the voice in your head. And there's this wonderful dialogue where this guy, the one of the two guys who's kind of like his protector, and also is like trying to break his ego by robbing him and all this. So he abandons everything. He says, "You've heard that voice," and he can read his mind. So it's like, so the Jake character, he's talking to these two guys, and his ego voice is saying, "Don't trust these guys. You don't know these people. They're not on your side." And then, like, the guy addresses that voice and says to him, "You've heard that voice for so long. You believe it to be you. You believe it to be your best friend." And then they say, "Where's the best place an opponent should hide?" In the very last place you would look. And he's all up here pretending to be you. You're in a game, Jake. You're in the game. Everyone's in his game and nobody knows it. All of this is his world. He owns it. He controls it. He tells you what to do and when to do it. He's behind all the pain there ever was, behind every crime ever committed. And right now, he's telling you he doesn't even exist. And we put you to war with the only enemy that ever existed, and you think he's your best friend. It's such a cool. I mean, it's still worth watching that movie. It's such a cool moment, and it's true though. I mean, without getting paranoid or trying to scare anyone or just freak you out, it's like how much of like if we can accept that schizophrenics or people can hear voices, and I gave some examples of people hearing voices that told them to do things they couldn't possibly have known about, right? The job interview and getting the job. Yeah. That person had no idea. Also, the fact that in the schizophrenic, the voices are harmful. Why would your own brain tell you to kill yourself, right? It makes no sense. So it's something outside, but it's pretending to be you.
And but could you also just playing devil's advocate
idea, you know?
Just playing devil's advocate for a sec, though. I mean, is it not like, because we don't know much, like as a civilization, we're still pretty amoebic and stuff in terms of the grand scheme of things, like versus if we somehow got to 1 million years from now, you know, what we would know then. So is it like playing devil's advocate, perhaps, you know, it is some kind of neurological, neuroplastic type issue in terms of a fault, perhaps in the coding that's creating a kind of glitch, and this is what's happening. You know,
why does it happen consistently to everyone, and why? I mean,
because it's a similar, I guess it's a similar glitch. I mean, like, you know, like you have in computers, similar glitches happen across computers, sort of thing. So I don't know. It could be. Look, I'm more towards what you're saying, for sure. But
yeah, you're just giving a sort of possible explanation.
It could be a glitch. We don't know. This is the thing. Like, whenever we talk about, or I talk about stuff like this with people, or whomever it is who's involved, in the back of my head is always that nagging little thing of like, yeah, but we don't really know anything. Like, we think we do. We've always.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you should give up on any trying
to
find out what's going on. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying that contextually, I always find it a little bit funny sometimes when I think about it. And I'm kind of like, we're saying all this and it's fascinating conversation. I enjoy these conversations. It's good to chew the fat and try and figure things out. But also, we could just not know anything. It's kind of amusing to me. That's all. But but yeah, of course, we
I
got to
think
like
when you build up a record, though, like my book, Demons of Lucius, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, even, do you know Brideshead Revisited, Evelyn Waugh, that writer?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, something similar happened to him. He's haunted by these voices on a cruise ship, and it's incredible. I mean, I've gone out of my way to find a lot of different examples. I mean, people like Philip K. Dick. You're a fan of Philip K. Dick, aren't you? I mean, he famously heard voices. Mahatma Gandhi, Winston Churchill, Anthony Hopkins, Brian Wilson. They all heard voices, and they were always critical and offensive. And it just makes no sense that your own mind would like rebel against you in that way. It just makes more sense that it's something that what the old books tell us is true, that there is an evil force out there that hates humanity. And whether it's demons or whether it's like aliens, maybe it's like discarnate alien beings, right? That want to, take over the world by, encouraging as many people to just be suicidal as possible. But there's something going on.
Or it's just playing around. They could just be playing around. Like the demons could just be playing around, or whatever entity, if it is that, or whatever entity that's doing that could just even be playing around. I mean, we don't know what these things are. We don't know what's possible and what these things are capable of. That's the thing. But I guess what we do know is there's a limit to what happens to some degree. But yeah, so yeah, we were gonna sort of wrap up in about a couple of minutes, weren't we? We were saying so.
Yeah.
So next week, hopefully we have a guest. We are getting a bit of like time chat, time dilation, the weird oddities of time, and what the hell is time, and all this.
Oh, you're going to talk about time, are we? Yeah.
Because she randomly come like she's not the type that would like. She's a very intelligent girl, but we talk more about kind of like worldly stuff. Like, well, I mean, time is, you know what I mean. We talk more about we don't talk about the kind of stuff that you and me chat about a lot, And she just sort of came out with it quite randomly when I was sat chatting with her yesterday, and yeah, just talking about how she was just. I could see that she was just trying to wrap her head around the idea of like, what is time? Can the future affect the past? And we were talking about how time kind of like a river, like you drop something in the river, creates a ripple effect, like i.e. there's a significant event like a 9/11 or something like that. It creates a ripple in time in all directions, this kind of thing. So yeah, it was interesting.
Backwards causality. That's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got an example
in all
about
that.
Right?
So I thought, maybe she'd pop on, and like she's always, she's good to chat to. So I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Okay, what has she got? Has she got a screen name?
That's a good point. I'll have to check that. Yeah, we'll sort that out.
She'll have to have an alias. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll sort that out.
Cool. Look forward to it. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, yeah. Cheers for that. Like, it's always been a good chat. Again, it's an hour 7 already. I can't believe it's an hour.
Man. I mean, sorry about the slight cock up, but we got third time lucky. But yeah, okay. So
I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, cool, man. No worries.
Right.
So enjoy your evening then. Yeah. Thanks to everyone who tunes in and listens. Thanks to you guys. I can see that there's people listening on X. I don't know if you can see at your end about BitChute and that, but I had a quick look at X whilst we were live. I could see a few people listening. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And cheers for listening.
Like, subscribe, comment, etc. Yeah, that's what we're going to say, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you took the words right out.
Nice. All right, everyone. Have a great week, and see you next week. Future Shock.
Cheers. See you later.
Ciao, guys. Adios.